Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of ReRacked, the snooker podcast by the fans, for the fans. I'm Phil, M18 Snooker. I'm your host. It's great to be here on a wing and a prayer. So, just want to ask everyone else to introduce themselves. Just say what your name is, how long you've been watching snooker, who your favourite player is. Simple as anything. So, I'll start. My name's Phil. I've been watching snooker for a little over 18 years, and my favourite player is Matthew Stevens. Catherine?
Oh, is it my turn? Oh, hello, I'm Catherine, and I've been watching since 1985. And I don't even want to know how many of you were not born in 1985 because that would just be really depressing. My favourite players are Neil Robertson and Hossein Vafai.
Hi, I'm Glen. I actually run the Snooker 365 Twitter page. I'm a snooker fan for kind of casual kind of fan for the last 20 years, but kind of getting into it more over the last 5-6 years. And my favorite player is Jack Lazowski.
Okay, hello. Everyone knows me as Lorenzo. I've been watching for probably 30 years now, even though I'm like 36. I started young, and my favorite player, as everyone knows, is John Higgins, followed by Ronnie and Mark Williams. So class of 92 favorites for me.
Well, it's nice to have you all here. To start off with, we're going to get to a big discussion soon. But first, just a quick roundup of news. So, what's happened so far this season? Well, we've had the Championship League. Surprisingly entertaining, to be honest. I know it's not the favourite of a lot of people. It's not really my favourite in many ways, but we got some good things there. I've got to mention that Michael Holtz did extremely well. I've got to mention that I've got his email address.
Are you going to tell us how you got his email address?
Oh, yeah. It's a funny story. It all started because I don't know if everyone's familiar, but Stephen Hendry's YouTube channel, Q-Tips, I was watching that in his latest episodes with Michael Holt, and they're having a good chat about the training services he provides. And I found the chat really interesting, and it's funny because I've recently got back into playing snooker. I've probably not played for a good probably since the start of the first lockdown, but I've got back into playing it, and I really am wanting to get better. So I just said something along the lines of, I'm going to be asking him for some tips when I'm a bit better at sport. He said, you don't need to be good to get training, and then just gave me his email address.
Sweet.
So I'm now legally obliged to demand that he wins every single event for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
Okay,
just on
so
the
is he gonna be our de facto second favourite player then? Do we have to all now cheer for him? Are we all contractually obliged to cheer for him?
Michael Holt is officially ReRacked's mascot, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, just on the Championship League, like it's probably not a lot of snooker fans' favourite event, or a lot of people don't even watch it. But I think just at this stage that the summer's been so long with no snooker, I think a lot of people are actually tuning in, and I kind of quite enjoyed it myself.
Yeah, to be honest, I've watched the Championship League for three years in a row, and this year, because they moved it from Free Sports to like Viaplay for $15.99, I didn't watch any of it. So I kind of missed it this year, if I'm honest, because I like it. It's quick, it lasts all day pretty much. Like all the players go there, you get to see people you don't see that often. I think it's a really great event personally, even though it's not that high profile. It's a nice way to be eased into the season, I think, personally.
Yeah, like it's a good chance to see, as you're saying there, it's a very good chance to see players that you wouldn't usually see or that wouldn't be on the TV table. So, yeah, I think it's a good tournament, definitely, to start the season off.
Yeah, you don't want to come in with the big guns straight away, you know.
No,
These all had like 3 months off. You know, everyone needs, including the players, need to sort of warm back into it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what I appreciate most about the Championship League, and it's slightly less big for me because I like watching lots of snooker. It's slightly less big for me now that Discovery Plus show all the qualifiers, and that's something I'd like to get onto in a future episode because I just love Discovery Plus. But it's a great opportunity to see players you don't normally see on the TV tables. Like, I've watched quite a bit of Table too because I was the free one on YouTube. And I think his Ishpreet Chadha was on there, and I was so impressed by him. The new Indian guy really strikes the ball well.
Yeah, quite. We used to be able to go and watch the Champions League more, sort of in person as a fan. And I've sort of gone when they've held events sort of near where I live. And I mean, the first time I ever saw Jack Lazowski play was the Champions League, and this was when he was quite young. Do you know what I mean? So that I've seen like a lot of players for the first time at that event, and I think that's we'd say it's not a fan's favorite or anything. It's because most people never get to actually see it.
Yeah.
If you're going to move it onto something that's going to cost 16 notes when you're already paying out for Discovery Plus and other things as well, then no one really is going to watch it, and they're not seemingly very open to people going in person either.
No, that's one thing I don't understand about it, to be honest. They make it inaccessible for like TV viewers and also people to actually go to the event. So it's almost like they're shooting themselves in the foot. I don't understand it.
I think that's probably a completely other conversation, but the accessibility of even scores or news or snooker news it's not good enough at the minute. That's one thing that definitely needs to improve.
Yes, don't even start.
No, I don't.
We can take a whole podcast episode about the scoring system, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's something I'm going to get onto a bit more in future episode scoring system, because that's just been absolutely shambolic. I did want to briefly mention it. It's an absolute shambles. This is a professional sports industry, a professional governing body, and they can't even be bothered to give you a reasonable way to keep track of the scores. I mean, if it wasn't for Lula and everyone else at snooker.org, who did such a magnificent job to keep up with things, we wouldn't have had a clue what was going on, quite frankly.
They are doing the Lord work, they are.
It's like a shambles probably is the perfect way to describe it. Like I think in the live scoring there last week or a couple of weeks ago, it went into like 4 decimal points in the average shot time, and it wouldn't even tell you like how much points are left on the table. Like it's just it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense.
We don't know what break Aon's on. We don't know if they've got snookers acquired, but we know that James Cahill's shot is 300ths of a second over 20 seconds. The things we really need to know.
Yeah.
So, we have Championship League. So,
yes, just for like as you were saying there, like a professional sport, like no other sport would be in a situation like that where they can't provide fans a proper scoring system that they can follow a match on. Like it's a bit of a joke, really.
Yeah. So we have a Championship League. Miraculously, for the first time, I think ever, Matthew Stevens actually won a match in it and got through his group, despite barely having a 50 breaks even. So I was quite pleased.
Yeah.
And they made a century against Judd Trump somehow. But in the end, Sean Murphy won it, following on from a fantastic season last season. May I say best season of his career, beating Mark Williams, who, let's be honest, only got through because the table started playing strangely against Sankam. I still can't believe that black.
Actually, I missed it. I didn't watch any of it. I refused to pay.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see now if Murphy can continue to form on. Like, brilliant last season. So be very interesting to see if this year can be anywhere near as good as last.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think he's got his eyes set on world #1 spot, isn't he? So
Yeah.
So
like,
then
it's interesting to see Murphy. Sorry, carry on.
No, you carry on. I'm going to move on in a moment.
Yeah, I was just going to say it was nice and it was interesting to see Murphy sort of coming back. Because he's kind of been missing for a couple of seasons. He turns up, he has some good matches, but winning essentially just vanished. And yeah, it was great just to see him come back and win some tournaments again, some big ones.
Exactly. And he had 2 or 3 seasons where he basically stayed in the top 16 off the back of one tournament a season.
Yeah.
He reached one final a season. I remember he reached World Final 2021. He'd done absolutely nothing the entire season.
I think what I really hoped, I got to see him in person, a few times playing, and the standard was just incredible, and it was just really good. Like, and hearing him saying that he was feeling a lot better. Obviously, we know he lost the weight and everything, and a lot had been said about him. And John Higgins had lost his weight and seemingly come back and done really well. And we talked about that ad nauseum, I think, at the time, but. Yeah, it was just watching him do it and just seeing that he was back to his best. And when he's at his best, he's just one of the best to watch. And he's a really, I know he's a bit of a Marmite figure, but I think he's brilliant. I think he's really
I think he's great addition to the tour. Because who else is going to moonwalk on? No one.
Yeah. Yeah, he has got the best walk-on music, hasn't he? I mean, that is just immense. I mean, I was kind of hoping he might sign up for Strictly, but after last season, I'm not going to do that.
Genuinely, I don't think he can get a much better ambassador for a tour than Sean Murphy.
Absolutely.
And it's good, like, to snooker kind of needs a personality like that, so it's very good to see. I know, like, a lot of people are giving out about him commentating on tournaments that he's still in, but it seems to be working for him at the moment, so there's not much you can really say until
I don't blame him either, because obviously he's had sort of a poor couple of seasons. I guess he's been looking to the future to think, right, I'm going to get myself in with the BBC for when I eventually retire. So he's looking forward to that. He's setting his eyes to the future, I guess. And I personally don't have an issue with it. I know everyone does. A lot of people do, rather, when he's commentating on the same day, and that's mainly because he's not. People feel like that he's not giving himself the best chance in his matches. I think.
Well, I mean, he's not by a long distance the only one that's done that, though. Mark Allen's done it. Joe Perry's done it. They've been out in the afternoon and then commentated in the evening. I mean, I would imagine that after all these years on tour, they know what's best for them. And but if you're going to be watching it anyway, then you might as well commentate on it.
I think another thing, it's interesting when he is commentating, because like he knows the shots that's coming up, so it's good to listen to. Like, I think Hendry's another one that's very good at that. He'd call the shot before the player actually gets down to take it, and yeah, it's very good to watch when they are actually commentating.
I think Alan McManus does that all the time, doesn't he? And I think
it's very good.
Got a bit of stick for it, but he's right most of the time. So it is. I think it's really interesting when you get any current or former pro in, because they're obviously going to be able to give a different perspective anyway. So
like Henry for me reminds me of Willie Thorne, just his brutalness when he comes out and he's that is terrible, and I love that. There's someone who just is brutal and kind of rips them apart quietly in the comms box, and I'm like, oh no, but we need that. I think we need someone who's honest and is like, that was a terrible shot. And I'm just like, yeah, it was actually.
I know.
I find Henry a little grating on commentary, to be honest. I just find his negativity a bit too much.
I'm the same. Yeah, I must admit there was a little bit of the sort of goody two shoes about it. It's sort of like, oh well, I wouldn't have done that, but it's like, but then again, you are one of the greatest of all time, so I guess you're allowed to to do that, I suppose.
So
That thing, like he can say whatever he wants, in my opinion.
Yeah,
He's done it all,
exactly.
you know, he's essentially responsible for helping Neil Robertson's break building. By saying that, I can't remember, it was a few years ago, but he made a comment and Neil took his comments on board, and then he did like 100 centuries in his season after Henry's comments. So people and players will listen to him. He's important.
I think it's good. I think he knows that as well. So I'm thinking that maybe he's he does take that quite seriously, that responsibility.
He's up there with Murphy as like top ambassador for the sport, I think, with his new channel and everything that he's doing, all the players that he's interviewing. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to move on to the European Masters now, because we had those qualifiers that I saw a lot of. First of all, who hides on their betting slip that the first 147 of the season will be made by Sean O'Sullivan?
I don't think even Sean O'Sullivan put it on his betting slip.
No. I think Sean probably would have picked about 127 players before himself.
It's
No
a good start.
I'm sorry?
As I just said, it's a good start to his season and his his confidence.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He still lost, but it's a good start, break building wise.
Yeah.
Was it his first competitive 147? Do you know?
Yeah, I think his pre-size break was 142.
Nice.
His first 140. It was his first 140 plus in like 10 years, I think.
It could be, he could start rising up the rankings and have a great season off the back of that.
That's what it just shows. Everyone on the tour is capable. You don't get duck eggs as professionals.
Yeah, exactly. Even the length of the games, like best of 9 frames, it was good to see, like just from the Championship League, like only being 4 frames, but a bit of a longer format with the nine frames was good to see. And I know that I think was it the top 16 that were held over their games.
I think it's the top 8.
Top 8, yeah.
Because I know I think Bingham's in the top 16. He had a match with Jamie Clark.
Yeah.
I meant to watch and then didn't. Because I'm a terrible snooker fan.
There were a few shock results, like with Dominic Dale beating McGill 5-2.
I didn't see that coming.
No, definitely not.
Being Welsh, though, I loved that result. I won't lie. I love Dominic.
Yeah.
It's difficult for me because I love Dominic, but I also love Anthony McGill.
But he's one of those players you don't see him all year until the World Championship, and then he's somehow in the semis. Like, I just want him to do better all through the season and have a consistent season.
Exactly.
It's just, he doesn't. He's a big game player, but you never see him sort of getting far in the best of 7s.
Yeah.
He doesn't like them. He said that, the Crucible. He kind of builds his entire season around the Crucible, which is why he does do so well. But he says he just doesn't. He can't settle, into a best of 7 or a best of 9 as easy, because I guess he's just a slow starter, I guess. But
he's just one of those players who just gets into the game, but it's just he needs to adapt, I think, personally, if he wants to do better anyway.
Yeah,
you never know, he could be world champion and not win anything else, but who knows?
There's a couple of notable things in the European Masters qualifiers. But cool matches I remember. One of them, Ben Merson's and Gary Wilson. Absolutely crazy match.
Yeah. I think Ben won in final frame decider.
Yeah, I think Ben needed a snooker at 4-3 down, having been something like 3-1 up. I think he's 3-1 up and then 60 behind and 59 on. Got a snooker, end up winning the 8th frame by a point and completely dominating the decider. So, well done, Ben. Could you make it slightly less stressful next time, maybe? I am concerned about my heart rate.
Was that his first win on tour?
No, Ben had quite
No?
a few wins last season.
Oh, okay.
I think my English Open he reached last 16 and lost to Ronnie.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I think he wasn't he? Didn't he come from like 3-0 down to 3-all against Ronnie or something like that?
He was 3-0 down, having missed one of the colours in each of the frames to win the frame. Then came back to 3 each, and I think Ronnie might have made a ton in the decider.
Yeah, I think he did win it quite emphatically, that decider, which I thought was quite impressive because he must have been a bit worried.
Mm-hmm.
I think even Gary Wilson seems to be another one of them players that kind of struggles with consistency. Like, you never really know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
He's playing.
I guess that's what separates the greats from the rest, I guess.
Yeah.
I think for me anyway, just the ability to do it all the time, almost every tournament for every season for multiple years.
Yeah.
Yeah. No match I saw. You won't be surprised to hear watched Matthew Stevens versus Julian Boyko.
Oh.
Everyone knows I love Stevens, and I really like Julian as well. And another weird match. Matthew was one easy missed block away from going 4 up. Then should have gone 4-3 down, 1-5-3. After he spent about 20 minutes battling for snookers in the last frame.
I think Bike was definitely one to watch. I know he's still young, but like over the next 5 years, he's going to be quality.
Yeah. There's a lot of exciting talents at the moment, and especially with Ben Mertens and also Julian Leclerc obviously reached shootout final last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I went on record the other week and said definitely Ben Mertens is going to be a world champion. I've absolutely no doubt about that at all.
Ooh, that's a big ask.
Call.
It's a big call, but I'm doing it. That is the hill I am going to die on.
Fair enough, because like all these young players come through, and then like Ronnie or the Eurosport guys go, "Yep, future world champion, and don't put too much pressure on him, Catherine. No,
no, I'm not like the commentator's curse. I'm like, I want to be the opposite, but I do genuinely think he will. I think
it'd be brilliant to see young, fresh, new faces come through and win a world championship. Like Luca, that was amazing.
I was going to say nobody bet Luca was going to win the world championship. Quite the reverse.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, especially with the likes of Mertens and Claire, you have to think, has Luca Pichel's world title win come at just the right time for Belgian snooker? Because it's almost like Luca's the elder statesman of them now. Sounds stupid when don't think he's even 30 yet, but you've got Leclerc and Mertens rising up, and now we've got some world champion to look up to. Not just someone who's famous for taking 2 Qs to the Masters.
And he's under 30.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
wonderful.
I think I was going to say I'll put a caveat next to my big prediction, but I think
here we go.
Sort of Mertens it's going to be a while. I'm not saying he's going to win it, in the next 2 or 3 years. I think it'll be in the next sort of probably 5 or 10 years. Yeah. But I do think that he's the one of particularly of the really young players that we've seen, to me, that looks most likely to do that. He just seems to be able to settle, in the longer matches as well.
Yeah.
Whereas I sort of see Leclerc's a little bit more sort of crash bang wallop. He likes to do the big long potting, and he, a bit like Neil Robertson does. He likes his, he hits the ball really hard and everything. And we saw that at the shootout that he was able to play. It was almost like he was on big break back in the 90s. Doing the clock. He was able to do all of that.
Bring back big break, you cowards!
Absolutely, but not with Jim Davidson, for God's sake. Spare us.
I think Jim Davidson's about 300 by now.
No, that's
pretty
fine.
Sure
we'll get Rob Walker to do it. It'll be absolute carnage if Rob Walker did it, but I think it'd be hilarious.
I'll get on McManus so Charlie's happy.
Yeah, I'd be happy as well. I'm the other one. Yeah, I'm the other Alan Mack super fan, aren't I? So
yeah,
we'd both be happy.
But just looking just thinking with Claire, you hear versus nicknames of Belgian Beast, and you think, well, that's a nickname and a half. But you watch him, you see him, and then you watch him play, and you think, yeah, I can see why he's called the Beast.
I mean, I met him at the shootout very briefly. He is absolutely huge. He is huge. He's like about 6'5" tall and about 6 foot wide. And I think Mertens is really tall. I think he's about 6'6" or something ridiculous.
Yeah. He had a massive growth spurt though, didn't he? Over a year. He was tiny when he was at the shootout one year, and then the next year he was just like he was massive.
Yeah. I think my biggest fear for those two, I think watching it, we talk about, burnout, etc. My biggest fear is actually their back problems that they're going to have from all that sort of bending down. They have to go down a lot more. But I think Luca's like me. He's like 5'4" or something, so he's all right. But yeah,
Luca literally looks like a child compared to him.
I think the fact that Luca went bald quite early probably helps him not get ID'd all the time.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. It's weird seeing Luca with hair. I was watching something last week, WST. I criticise him a lot, but I do like the YouTube channel. And they uploaded the first ever Power Snooker event.
I watched that.
With things a 16-year-old Luca Bachel.
Played Ronnie.
Yeah.
So when they were walked out by like supermodels also.
Yeah.
So bizarre.
Some of the past videos that they actually upload are very good.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's a lot of problems with scoring and that, but their uploads are very good.
Yeah, and the uploads from your Davis started watching things in 1990 UK final. Davis and Hendry. I've just got to a bit where Hendry went 4-0 up and Steve Davis was stood there thinking, what do you want me to do about this? He won't miss. What do you want me to do? Tickle him?
And Henry was just a different beast, wasn't he?
Yeah, this was Hendry coming towards his peak. Everyone debates when Hendry's peak was. I think really it's of early to mid-90s, because that's when it was considered a surprise if Hendry did not win an event. Any event he didn't win was a surprise.
Yeah, this is the thing, like it turned people off the game. Like my dad, this is how I started watching snooker, was through my dad, and like he just knew Stephen Henry was going to win, so the snooker would go off. That was it. I get it. I must get my my sort of personality from him, because I'm very much like, John is going to lose, I'm switching her off. But he just dominated so hard that that it sort of killed the sport for a little bit almost,
Yeah, I mean, Ian Save's saying about Davis in the 80s, and then in the 2000s, no one really.
No.
I suppose you can sort of argue Ronnie at the end of it a bit, but even then Ronnie's best years were really the 2010s.
Yeah, and he took a year out as well. So we've missed a year of Ronnie.
The 2000s, the noughties really just do feel like this Wild West of anyone could win anything.
Yeah, when you had like up and comers like Selby was coming through, and obviously like John and Ronnie and Mark were still going well, and Stephen Henry was sort of on the decline in the early 2000s. So there's a lot of change going on, I think, in the early 2000s.
I have a feeling like the next few years could be like that.
Exactly.
Someone dominating like you're saying, Henry or Davis there used to, but
yeah, definitely. I mean, because I think I was just going to say the same thing. I mean, the class of 92 are going to have to stop at some point. I mean, they're all pushing 50 now, so you sort of think they're not going to be around as much in the next sort of 5 or 10 years. So there's going to be a big transition there, which is why I think sort of the last 2 seasons we're seeing lots and lots of different ranking winners, even if they are sort of more vintage, like Perry or Milkins or whatever. It doesn't matter.
And that was brilliant.
You're getting a different
class of 92 as well.
Yeah, he was. He was kind of like the less heralded one. But I think that's been one of my favourite things in the last couple of years, has just been that literally anybody can do that. And you saw that in, well, obviously the World Championship. I mean, you wouldn't have thought that C would get to the semi-finals, and you wouldn't have thought that Luca would win. So, you know,
not against Selby.
That is now. No, exactly. I mean, it was crazy.
And that's what we need. We need that.
We do. Absolutely, we do.
So we're going to move on in a minute to our big topic for today, which is how do we get youngsters into the game? And more importantly, are WST doing a good job of getting them into the game?
No.
Spoiler alert, no.
Right, on to our big topic. I promise this is not the fourth time we try to do this. Our big topic for today is, of course, how do we get new players into a game? And it was going to be, are WST doing a good enough job, which we'll try and get onto later, but the short answer everyone has agreed is no.
Yep.
Well, I think I think the two are pretty much together, aren't they? Because I mean, in order for attracting players in, they have to be doing a good job, don't they? Because they're the ones that have got the means, the budgets, the the wherewithal to be able to actually say, look, this is our sport, come and play it, sort of thing, or come and watch it. And you have to see it to believe it, don't you? You have to representation matters. And so I think that's two can be discussed together.
Like what I think sometimes is the over reliance on the youngsters coming from China. So obviously they don't care about going to Europe as much as they do about going to China. We've got like floods of young Chinese boys coming through because it's in schools, it's part of the curriculum. So to me, it feels like, oh yeah, don't worry, all the youngsters are going to come from China. We don't need to throw all the money at the UK grassroots. That's how it feels to me. Probably possibly wrong, but
and I think that's what caused some of the issue. I love your point, Loz. That's some of the issue during COVID. We've thrown all this money at China to get all Chinese players coming through, and now we can't go there for 3 years.
Yeah. And half of them were cheating. Well, not half of them, that's exaggerating, but there was 9 cheaters.
Exactly. Including 2 members of the top 16, players who are supposed to be untouchable in terms of corruption.
Yeah.
They're the ones making the money. They're the ones who are supposed to be a different class almost.
Yeah. It's just wild because now we have a world champion from Europe who's in his 20s. Like we haven't even got an event over there.
Yeah.
Mark Williams and Stuart Bingham did a exhibition in Finland. Was it Finland where T Snooker's from?
Yeah,
Norway?
Finland.
And they sold like 3,000 tickets for the weekend. Yeah. But where's the event? Where's World Snooker at?
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, it does seem to me that the players are doing a lot of the legwork. I know we've talked about Henry and his YouTube channel and things like that. But yeah, I do think it is. I mean, it's quite. I wouldn't say it's not unique, but it's quite unusual to have professional sportsmen basically opening themselves up and saying, let me coach you. So you've got Michael Holt, you've got Jamie Jones has been doing it. I know Dave Gilbert's got his club and so on and so forth. And they're saying, well, yeah, come and pay me this amount and I'll teach you how to do it. And you don't get that in, football or rugby or cricket or whatever. The top players are not driving the development of the sport so much. They're just getting on with their jobs and doing their sponsorship and contractual obligations.
That's a fantastic point, Catherine. It reminds me of something which is, young Liam Pullen from Leeds, who's just come on the tour. I think he's talking after Q School, and he's saying that even when he's been an amateur in his mid-teens, he's been playing with Sanderson Lamb, who is a grizzled professional at this point. He's been on and off the tour for over a decade. So it's just, even if it is just, I get to play at the same club as these players, that's a way they can develop, but that's not being promoted at all. It almost shouldn't be up to the players to say, okay, I'll train you up. There should be some sort of way of WST saying, well, you can go to these clubs, have a day there, learn from the players. We'll pay the club some money.
Like, I don't want to be sitting here bashing World Snooker, but like, what are they actually doing? Like, as Catherine was saying there, like any other sport you take, their top players aren't like they're not at the forefront of promoting the sport like snooker is. So it's just not good enough, really.
No, and it's like a double-edged sword almost, because the players are doing this and doing exhibitions and everything and coaching because the tour doesn't actually offer enough money. That's how I
Yeah.
feel.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of them.
That's-
I mean a lot of them are doing it obviously to earn a bit of beer money or whatever. But yeah, I mean it's true. But I think that there is a way of them working together. They're obviously willing to do it, and
Yeah.
and when you go to events, like I went to York and they had like the Q Zone and everything, and they had Joe Perry down there and Jack was there, Judd was there, and it was brilliant just to watch them up close.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've ever seen me hold a snooker pool cue, you'll know I'm absolutely hopeless. But but even I could see what they were doing, and they were really good at explaining it and technique and things like that. And it was just so nice to see it, really. And so they're obviously willing to do it, and that's brilliant.
Yeah.
But there needs to be something coming from the top to push it a little bit more, because I didn't even know that half of that stuff was happening. There were people going around shouting, saying, "Oh, the Q Zone's down there," and we're just like, "Well, what's that?" And so you wander off, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Joe Perry's going to be doing a Q&A in a minute," and so then of course everybody ran down there, and it was brilliant.
I was at Crucible obviously this year, and I know I was only there for one day, but the thing with the Q Zone is they don't really promote it. You see it there next to the venue, but at no point, I know it's open, it's of a tent, but at no point do they ever say what it actually is. It's just, this is a thing which is here that is something to do with snooker. It doesn't say, oh, you can do Q&As with this player at this time. It doesn't say, oh, you can learn about technique, or you can pay a bit of money to have a practice frame against a player.
Yeah.
And the subject of...
That's their overall issue with snooker, is they do not advertise it and they do not promote enough of anything. People didn't even know there were big events in their hometown because it wasn't advertised anywhere.
Exactly.
I mean, it's to be honest, it's been going on for a long time, and I think they've done a lot of good stuff. I mean, they can balance it out, the TV deals with ITV4 and obviously Discovery Plus, and you can watch more tables, and so you've got that going on. But then you've got things like we were talking about the tracker, weren't we? And that's sort of let it down a bit, trying to follow scores and I think if you're going to attract young people as well, you need to be using the means that young people would use. So get on social media, get apps that are worth actually bothering to download and things like that.
Yeah.
That's how you reach people. It's all very well putting it on a channel and stuff, but you need to do a bit more than that. That's going to be okay for your armchair fans, people, people like us who can't get there to watch it, but is it going to engage a sort of 9-10-year-old kid?
Yeah, the thing is, it's not the how much of Discovery Plus, and again, once gets onto that in future, it's not aimed at the people you need to be attracting. It's all well and good having this for the seasoned snooker fans, but they're not going to be around forever. You need to be attracting younger people to the game, not only to watch, but to play as well. And there's something I want to get on to, as mentioned a few minutes ago, which is the monetary aspect not being there. There's some examples. When they've got this £20,000 grant for players who don't earn that in a season. And speaking of Andres Petrov from Estonia a couple times last season, he was saying that doesn't even cover his travel costs for a season.
Yeah.
Never mind the cost of hotel, the cost of eating, the cost of looking after his young child. His kid's a year old. He's got a wife back in Estonia, I think.
Yeah. And it's
Um,
sad because like he's the type of fresh new people that we need coming through from abroad, you know, from
Exactly. You want to see
youngsters.
people from new countries.
This is the fresh blood that we're craving, you know, because the boys are not going to be around forever. Selby and all that are in their 40s, you know. Ronnie's and all that coming up to 50, you know, in 10 years. Where is everyone else going to be?
Exactly. It is worrying when you look at the top 16 and you look at their age and you see 40, 40, 39, 46, 46, 45, 40, 41,
48.
48. Yeah.
Because Ronnie's 48, the world number one.
Yeah, I know, it's mad, isn't it? It's just, and you think about, I just think a lot of the players I know from certain parts of Europe have come over and started to base themselves here because I think they're figuring it's probably going to be easier in terms of most of the tournaments being over here. I mean, you've got the young lad I saw him for that. Vladislav Gradinari, I think you pronounce it.
Yeah,
and he was fabulous. I mean, you know, he lives in Leeds, which if you've ever heard him speak, you can tell it's kind of like he speaks English with a Yorkshire accent, which is pretty cool. But yeah, he lives in Leeds, and I think he practices with Ollie and Peter Lyons, and that I think he's at their club, I think. But they moved over here because of that opportunity, because I'm guessing it's not particularly big in Moldova, but
no,
you do, you know, like you said, people from sort of Estonia. I mean, Belgium's a little bit nearer, but you know,
like who's the Brazilian, the young Brazilian boy? What was his name? He was at the shootout and he got through his first match. He was quite short. I can't remember his name.
Victor
Sarkis.
Victor Sarkis, yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, these are all that, you know, and it's so difficult for them to come over and make a living and make a career out of it.
Yeah.
You know, I was noting on my Meet the Contestants blog where I was running through people on tour. I think it was talking about one of the new players from Egypt, and I was saying that the Egyptian players have an awful record on tour. And that's probably why, because they're having to travel so far, they barely get any chance to practice.
Well, this is also before. I mean, I mean, I know it's been talked. Another topic that's been talked about to death was, obviously the prince coming from Iran, and he lives in Darlington of all places, you know. And it's just, that must have been a bit of a culture shock for him. But you know, I mean, that's another one because he's going to have visa issues as well. So that's again, that's another thing that got talked about to death, I think, last season. But
I think he had something like 2 wild cards from the tour, based on the fact that he had so many visa issues. He could, at one point, he could barely compete in any tournaments because it doesn't matter where the tournament is. If he qualifies in the UK, he couldn't get in because he's Iranian.
Yeah.
So I think they could maybe, I mean, getting back to the topic, you know, we talk about promoting it, but also making sure that you are looking after the young players. Because, I mean, he's not all that old either. I mean, he's, you know, he could be around for the next sort of 20, 25 years. I mean, I think he's only about 28. So,
I mean,
you know, you've got to look after the ones that you've got, is my point. You know, they shouldn't have to be taking dual nationality or, you know, or whatever in order to be able to do that, because you need to be able to have players from all different countries coming through. I mean, the Chinese must look after their players in order for them to get the visas that they do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so again, you've got to keep the young players that you've got, but you've also got, you know, because they need to be able to be seen. Otherwise, snooker's just going to get a reputation as being a sport for middle-aged men.
Yeah, it's heading that way.
And like the sport, like it's never going to grow. Like just from a point from earlier, like promotion and advertising of it, it's like there was a tweet there today, just about missing snooker, and there was so many replies saying when does the actual season start, and so like any other sport, just take the Premier League starting this weekend. Like every fan knows that it's starting this weekend.
Yeah.
The fact that there's so many people asking when the actual snooker season, like that's just one obvious sign that the advertising of it's just not good enough. Like,
Yeah.
I think the thing is, the season's supposed to start with the Champions League, isn't it? And that's another thing. It's like we've just said in the last earlier on. None of us really knew it was there. We couldn't watch it. The first event of the season should really be an event, an actual event, shouldn't it? It should be a big
even if they put it on Matchroom, just for like a few pound a week or whatever, more people would watch that than $15.99 on Viaplay.
From Matchroom is obviously Mount on Twitter, and she uses Matchroom because I think she was in the Emirates somewhere, and it barely even works.
Terrible. It's one of the worst functioning streaming services that I've used, if I'm honest.
Well, like they should be using the start of the season or whenever that is, like should be using the first competition next week as a chance to like get fans excited or get them ready for the new season. But there's been no talk of it whatsoever. Like no,
I don't know. They're so short-sighted. Like, it just seems like everything is for the moment, where they're not willing to chuck a load of money and potentially lose some, I guess, over a course of time to build. Do you know, you have to invest. You have to invest to grow. You know, it takes money to earn money, but it just feels like they'll do the bare minimum for the future. Everything is the moment. You know, you need someone who is thinking 2, 3, 4 years down the line, who's like, yes, I've got this certain amount of money, then we will invest it in this. It doesn't matter if we don't see a profit yet, because it'll turn up in 5, 6, 7 years. That's what we need, I personally think.
Even longer in some cases, because you've got, I mean, we've got, and we talk about young players again, Stan Moody, Vladislav, we've got Liam Davis coming through as well. And it's all very exciting, but they've got to be able to earn a living as well. I mean, I know they'll be at school at the moment, but again, they've got to be able to, when they do turn pro or when they do join the Pro Tour, know that they're going to be able to continue to do it and not have to, rely on parents and, fundraising and stuff like that, or even taking time away to do the coaching. I mean, it's nice that they can do that, but that used to be something that retired players did.
Yeah.
Not active players, because they were busy practicing their own.
If they're not willing to invest or try and promote the game more, like the results just aren't going to be there. Like, it's the sport, like the sport's going to get less and less popular unless there's more investment in it. Like,
exactly, and let's not forget the sponsors. Sponsors are going tits up. I know I keep saying that, but like Kazoo is, how many jobs have been lost because of Kazoo going under, and they're our main sponsor for the most of our events.
Yeah, I was a bit concerned about that. I think there was a bit of a debate about so who could sponsor it, in terms of, I think there was talk about some gambling companies and stuff like that, and people saying, well, that's not a good look or whatever. And I agree on the sense, particularly with all the match fixing allegations that have been made, but I think at the same time, and as harsh as it sounds, they are the people that are making money at the moment.
Yeah, I know.
And maybe short term,
you
might have to sort of, bite down on it and just grin and bear it and take it just for a little while at least. Because I don't see, other companies. The only companies that seem to be making any money are petrol companies and supermarkets at the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't see the Asda World Masters turning up anytime soon.
No. But back when Pucker Pies were sponsoring, I don't know if people can remember that.
Oh,
yeah.
Too. That was immense.
And it was like Ding Junhui was there with like Pucker Pies in a poster and stuff. It was just, they're trying. Like, who was that guy? We need that guy. At least he had some bloody balls to go out there.
That was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. It was so strange.
Jimmy White going Jimmy Brown to get the HP connection.
Yes.
Got nothing like that now. It's sad.
It is a bit sad. But that's what I mean. So, you've got to invest at your grassroots level. I know, as Glen mentioned, having them in schools. Yeah. And I remember Alan McManus posting some of an old school that I think it was a school he went to or something, that was being pulled down, and there was a snooker table in the canteen. It's like, well, why isn't there a snooker table in canteens? I don't, and clubs are closing up and down the country, and I just think that they need to have the opportunity to play it.
Yeah.
Maybe the kids
like
who are not like football mad, like, you know, because there are going to be kids at school that are not athletic.
yeah,
Why
like
can't
me.
they? Can't they? Well, exactly. There's going to be kids that don't want to play football or cricket or whatever. Why can't they be given the opportunity to try and play snooker or darts or something? You know, something that doesn't require you to run around for an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's
just,
just like, you know, I think them going around schools was a fantastic idea, and that should be a yearly thing. Like maybe a couple of weeks before the World Championship, that some of the players from the top 16 should go around all the schools in Sheffield and surrounding areas, and, you know, promote the fact that this tournament is there, and, you know, even Judd Trump can just get out and do some flashy shots, make it look cool. Then kids will be like, "Oh, I'd love to be able to do something like that."
Yeah.
And you just need inspiring. The next generation need to be inspired.
They did bring some kids to the shootout, though. They did have an afternoon at the shootout. I will say that was quite good. So that was nice. They seemed to really enjoy it as well. So that was good. But again, but I think some of that might have been the fact that you could jump up and down and cheer and sing and
this meeting. Okay, sorry, this meeting has been upgraded. Okay, so we're not going to run out of time.
No, we're not. Yeah, and we were talking earlier about the financial aspect. Another thing I want to talk about that is this is a professional sport, yet players who are the tour, you're saying these are 128 best players in the world. They're at the peak of the game. They are professional sports people. Why are they having to get second jobs?
Yeah.
You know, Stephen Hallworth working in a pub. I read something from an interview a couple months ago with Lou Heathcote. Last season, he was working up to 10 hours a day behind the bar in the snooker club just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Because there's too many. 128 is too many.
Yeah.
There's not enough money. There's not enough money to go around.
No.
Exactly.
And the whole "we only reward winners" spiel is a load of bull. I don't like that as well. You know, it's the whole Barry Hearn motto: "We only reward winners." But the prize money is too heavy at the top and needs to be filtered down.
That's the thing. Saying we only reward winners is only all well and good. But number one, that's not how you run a sport. The idea is the winners get more, not the winners can afford to play, because then they will be the only winners. And also, not even the winners are getting enough, really, unless you're regularly winning tournaments. You know, you look at the World Championship, how much does one of that get? £500,000. Okay, how much does winning your first group at Championship League get you? £4,000.
Yeah.
You know, I think unless you get to a final, you're earning less than £10,000 potentially.
Yeah. Like even the shootout, for example, is like 50k. You know, for like 7 games, 6 games, and I love that it's a ranking event, and I do love that. But because it's changing careers, it'll give people confidence. You know, people are struggling. There's always the pressure. Oh, I need to win this game to be able to pay my bills, and then they can't win because of all the pressure. And it shouldn't ever be like that.
The shootout was £250 if you lost in the first round.
The shootout was?
Yeah.
Right, so that just covers people's expenses on travel.
Barely covers,
yeah.
I love the idea of, even if you go out in first round, you came, you gave it a go, we're going to pay your travel expenses for a day.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you're not good enough, you're still not making a career out of it, but now you're being given the opportunity.
It'll ease pressure and ease people's worries, you know? It's just like, okay, yeah, I can turn up. Even if I lose, I'm not out of pocket. Doesn't matter. Do you know, it's people will just need help for a little while. Like the 20 grand thing, I feel like that has only happened because there's just been absolute uproar for like a year. You know, everyone on social media saying this is terrible, and they have to do something.
Imagine how useful this 20 grand would have been a couple of years ago. It's a player I can think of who I don't think we ever got confirmation, but I suspect he quit on financial grounds. And it's a shame because a couple months before he was one match away from the Crucible. Igor Figueiredo of Brazil.
Oh yeah.
You know, he was in Judgment Day lost things in Mark Joyce, and then a couple of events into a new season, he just disappears, and then a few months later, I think it might have been Q House in Darlington said, "Oh yeah, he's quit the tour. He basically can't afford to play. He can't afford to come from Brazil."
Even Shiraz as well.
Yeah. What kind of sport is it if we're constantly losing players simply because they can't afford to turn up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There should be a fund, like an actual fund, so maybe the players don't get the money, but WST can have like this separate fund pot where they pay for all like European or foreign players to be able to get to tournaments and get to events, and they set up some sort of thing where someone runs the visas for them, so they don't have to do it themselves.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, what I'd love is some sort of system where players can sort of submit, almost like a business in a way. Players can submit expenses for things like hotel and plane tickets, and then they can be reimbursed at least some of that money.
Yeah.
They can give them receipts saying, "This is how much I spent on my plane tickets. This is how much I spent getting from the plane, from the airport to the hotel. This is how much I spent on a room at the hotel for a couple of days." Because it's not like a North sport where you might be in there for one night. Snooker, if you do well, you could be in there for a week or more.
Yeah.
And that adds up. Especially if it's an event somewhere kind of expensive. I mean, I know this is an extreme example because it's London, but I've booked 2 nights at a place in London for a Masters in January, and that's over 200 quid.
Mm.
And that's just an accommodation. Now you think, say, plane tickets from Brazil or from Estonia or wherever on top of that, and say you're doing that 12, 15 times a season.
It's a lot.
Yeah. That's why we need more events over Europe, so the European players don't have to travel, and it evens itself out.
Exactly. And I will say, it's very convenient for me that there's 2 events in Manchester because I live there, but does there need to be 2 events in Manchester?
No,
I know
like
the one after
one-
the other, but could you not have ordered the calendar slightly differently and say had one of them in Belgium or had one
Exactly.
of them in Scandinavia?
Yeah. It's honestly, I don't want to insult anyone, but it's run by a bunch of idiots. I will say that. That's how I feel personally anyway. There needs to be a huge shake-up in terms of people behind the scenes and the organisers of the events, because we don't even have like actual venues for events that stay there year upon year. It's like, oh, we're the shootout was there, and now it's in Swansea this year, so nothing has a home, nothing feels set. Do you know?
The Tour Championship. One year I'm going to go to it. It's in Llandudno. For next year, we've moved it to Hull this year.
Yeah, and it was empty,
next
and
year
no
it's
one
in
turned up.
Yeah.
It's shocking. I don't know who's doing all this, but it's terrible.
Yeah. And the thing is, I know that we have a tendency to complain as fans, but I just wish we'd realise sometimes we're complaining because we're right.
Yeah, and we complain. We love the sport. It's not just aimless moaning that we just doing for the sake of it. We're complaining because we want better and we want more for the sport that we all love.
Exactly.
And the players that we follow and like support and go through all these ups and downs with, we're there for them, and they're not.
No.
Yeah.
So we're all like just full of passion, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's probably not good to be comparing with other sports all the time, but like any other, like that just wouldn't happen in another sport. Simple as that.
No.
It's a shame because I genuinely believe the snooker community is one of, if not the best sporting fan bases.
Yeah.
I think so.
You get your idiots because you're doing everything, but I honestly believe a snooker fan base, for the most part, is one of the best around because no matter who you support, you can have a laugh with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no rivalry in terms of, oh, we've got to throw glass bottles at you or whatever because you support Team A, I support Team B.
Yeah.
You know, there's no booing really. Very rarely will you get boos in events or racism. You know, everything is like nice and we're all friendly and everyone's decent at our events, you know, and yeah, you don't have that in other sports, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the, I mean, going back to our original topic about getting people involved, I think that's a real selling point of the sport, isn't it? That there is that. It's like a one big sort of dysfunctional happy family kind of thing. You know, there's lots of different, like you can go to a tournament and you can meet them very easily. They're very accessible. It's just the getting to actually play in the first instance, I think, is what is not accessible.
Yeah.
And I've got young children in my family that I'm quite determined to introduce to snooker. You know, I'd love to get them to play snooker, but it's how do I convince them that this is better than playing cricket or football or tennis or any other sort of sport? How do I do that? You know, it's
Sorry, carry on.
So I really don't feel like they've embraced the rise of technology. I'm going to get more onto him in a few weeks. I'm going to invite him on at some time, but someone on Twitter who messaged me last night, Stephen Scully, great guy, he's quit his job to create sort of a website of snooker for young people so they can keep track of things like their own scores and performances. And he is saying that nothing like this exists. You know, World Snooker.
That is awesome. That is an awesome thing to do.
Yeah.
What's he doing exactly? Sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
I'll have a look.
Like building a website, did you say?
Yeah, he said he quit his job in February to create an online platform that allows for easy cue sport creation and cue sport competition creation management for people to be able to review their match history. He's launching it shortly in Ireland as a test market, and he might be coming on in a couple of weeks to talk about it. You know, he's said, instead of fighting against technology, we should be embracing it because it is the long-term answer. Because if you think about it, what is technology not going to do? Go away.
Yeah.
And that's what I said before. Like, kids are, you know, they are very social media savvy. They are very internet savvy. So that is the medium through which really you need to be trying to attract your kids and things like that, rather than just relying on them turning up or being dragged there by their mum and dad to come and watch them snooker when they might not particularly want to, but at least giving them an opportunity there that's a good thing. But what if they can't? You know, what if it's a kid whose parents can't stand snooker, but they do like it? You know, how are they going to get?
Yeah, and thing is, another thing is that almost on that subject of what if parents can't stand it, what if snooker was part of something?
As in, like what?
As in Big Break, it was almost part of a game show in a way.
Right. Yeah. Like obviously getting something into like the Olympics or the Commonwealth or something would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be a big, huge boost in terms of just eyes visibility on the sport. And people who possibly think, oh, it's boring and they have all these outdated, old-fashioned views of it would be like, oh, actually, you know what? I've had the wrong opinion of snooker.
Yeah.
It just needs to be out there. It needs to be out there.
I don't know if there was a discussion about getting a cue sport into the Olympics or not. I think maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Never got any further, like most things.
If you can put golf in there, you can put snooker in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like table tennis is in there as well, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like stuff like that. snooker should be in there.
Yeah, it comes to try and wrap up, because I know we've all got place to be. I think that what it comes down to basically is exposure, giving snooker some kind of cool factor that FIFA doesn't have, and embracing technology. Have a working app, have a comprehensible website, have a live scoring system that tells you the scores.
Yeah, that would just be a start, you know.
I didn't think you'd have to say this, but have a live scoring system that tells you what the scores are, not how many millionths of a second someone's average shot time is.
Do you know what? Like, it must have been like mid 2000s when Hawkeye was around on the BBC, and it's too expensive, so we scrapped that. So now we don't have a Hawkeye. And I watched tennis the other day for the first ever time, and I was like, oh whoa, they've got Hawkeye to see if the ball is out of bounds or not. I was just like, bring that back. The technology was it was getting somewhere, and then they just took it all away.
Yeah, it feels like we're regressing.
It does.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
So, does anyone have anything else to add, or is that a good place to wrap up, do you think?
I was just going to add more negativity to it, to be honest. I was just going to say, and now obviously not Barry, his son, I've forgotten his name.
Eddie.
Eddie. Like, he doesn't care about snooker. He really doesn't. And I don't know what he's going to do. He's going to take it to China. And I just feel personally in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to lose. It's going to be a lot of us are going to be sad about the place the snooker's in unless something changes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's getting to a point where, however stupid it sounds, we're almost going to end up having some sort of coup d'etat in snooker, where someone's almost going to either launch a spin-off tour or launch a hostile takeover.
Yes. It's kind of happening with these events, the unsanctioned events in China at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand it because they go over there, they get treated like royalty. I don't know if anyone saw Yan Sijun's comments the other day.
Yeah.
I did want to briefly mention that. He's saying about all the foreign players get chauffeured to their hotel. They get far more money than the local players. The local players have to call their own taxis to the venue.
I don't agree with it.
No.
I thought that was how they treated all the players that come to China, not just the British ones.
Same.
Yeah. It couldn't be that way.
You're not welcoming the British Empire. You're welcoming some sport people.
Yeah. Who you're also probably giving an appearance fee to, and not to the Chinese boys, which I disagree with again. But they want the names, they want Ronnie over there, so they give him however much money he demands to go to China. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because we've got a whole European market that is untapped, untouched, and it's just we'll just wait for 3 years to go back to China, and it bothers me.
Yeah, I feel like how strange it sounds, COVID was a huge missed opportunity.
It was.
There's so many things they could have done, and instead they chose to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, we had a clap machine that kept running out of batteries. That's how forward planning they were. It's just terrible.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you can ask who's to blame, but the buck falls with Steve Dawson, the head of WST. The buck stops with him. He's the one who has to take responsibility and either say, yes, I'm at fault, or do something about the person who was at fault.
Yeah, step down, Steve. Let someone else have a go. He's done nothing. Like, the only thing we've heard from Steve Dawson is when he came out to criticise Ronnie's comments.
Correct.
I haven't heard a peep from him since.
And when Judge Trump was complaining about dress code, it wasn't anything about, well, most of the players have no issue with it, so you shouldn't, or anything like that. It's come into my office for a little cup of tea, maybe some biscuits. We'll have a little chat about it.
Yeah,
maybe we should go into his office with some cup of tea and some biscuits, and maybe
you've got with the police, Catherine. You can do what you like. So just put your uniform on, and we'll all go to Steve Dawson's office.
I'll bring the donuts.
That's all, Catherine. Could you arrest him for crimes against snooker?
I'll have a look in the big book, in the good book, and I'll see if I can find something.
Gotta be something.
Right, I think that's probably a decent place to leave it.
Yeah, the
Before-
arrest of Steve Dawson.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll
let's
handcuff him to that desk. Yeah.
But that's been great. I really enjoyed this. I'm
Me
looking forward
too.
to going live.
So,
Yeah.
in conclusion, just want to invite everyone who's listening. Firstly, thank you for taking time out to listen. I know this is going to be quite a long one. We will try and get the length down a bit. We are new to this. We have too many opinions.
Yeah.
But we'd love you all to contact any of us, or especially the ReRacked Twitter account.
Yeah.
Just saying what you think about the subject. You can
Yeah,
find
and
this.
their opinions on what we were talking about. Just what can they do for grassroots level and stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do you? Yeah, tell us, what do you think? How do we get people into the sport? Is Steve Dawson responsible for the state of the sport, or is
Did he
it
be
Barry
arrested?
Hearn's fault, or is it Jason Ferguson's fault, or is it the fault of a laboratory in China for producing a deadly virus? Whatever you think, tell us. You can find this podcast on Twitter at RackedPod, RACKEDPOD. In the meantime, just want to plug a socials. You can find me personally at M18Snooker. M18Snooker. Lorenzo?
I've not yet McCready's beard, but it's just weird telling people that. You could probably edit that out. You'll find me under Lorenzo or whatever.
What was your hand? Was it in the balls 147 or something?
Oh yeah, shit. Oh my god, sorry, I was giving my other one away. My bad. Yeah. In the ball 147. I was thinking of my film Twitter. Oh god, yeah. I hope you're a good editor, Phil.
I hope I am.
I've ruined that. So sorry.
Catherine, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, Miss C.E. Walker. I am on Instagram. I can't remember what it is. I think it's Catherine Elizabeth 79 or something. And I'm on Facebook under Catherine Elizabeth.
Finally, Glen.
Yeah, so Snooker365 on Twitter. So just for any score or news updates, around snooker, you can find me there.
Brilliant. That's going to be it for today. Please tune in next time to the second episode of ReRacked, the only podcast where the snooker fans are the only people who matter. Thank you.
Cheers, Phil.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.